Hello, Jimmy. Hello, Horace. After the typical silence, Jimmy said pompously, I got a velocipede. Have you? Asked Horace, anxiously. He did not wish anybody in the world but himself to possess a velocipede. Yes, sang Jimmy, and it's a bigger one than that too, a good deal bigger, and it's a better one too. Huh? Retorted Horace, skeptically. Ain't I a Clarence, ain't I? Ain't I got one bigger than that? The retainer answered with alacrity. Yes, he has. A good deal bigger, and it's a dandy too. This corroboration rather disconcerted Horace, but he continued to scoff at any statement that Jimmy also owned a velocipede. As for the contention of that supposed velocipede could be larger than his own, he simply wouldn't hear of it. Jimmy had been a very gallant figure before the coming of Horace, but the new velocipede had relegated him to a squalid secondary position, so he affected to look with contempt upon it. Voluminously he bragged of the velocipede in the stable at home. He painted its virtues and beauty in loud and extravagant words, flaming words, and the retainer stood by, glibly endorsing everything. The little company heeded him, and he passed on ferociously. From extravagance to utter impossibility, Horace was very sick of it. His defence was reduced to a mere mechanical grumbling. Don't believe you got one tall, don't believe you got one tall. Jimmy turned upon him suddenly. How fast can you go? How fast can you go? He demanded. Let's see, I bet you can't go fast. Horace lifted his spirits and answered with a proper defiance. Can't I? He mocked. Can't I? No, you can't, said Jimmy. You can't go fast. Horace cried. Well, you see me now. I'll show you if I can't go fast. Taking a firm seat on his vermilion machine, he pedalled ferociously up the walk, turned and pedalled back again. There now, he shouted triumphantly. Ain't that fast? There now. There was a low murmur of appreciation from the little girls. Jimmy saw with pain that even his divinity was smiling upon his rival. There, ain't that fast? Ain't that fast? He strove to pin Jimmy down to an admission. He was exuberant with victory. Notwithstanding a feeling of discomfiture, Jimmy did not lose a moment of time. Why, he yelled, they ain't going fast taller. They ain't going fast taller. Why, I can go almost twice as fast as that. Almost twice as fast. Can't I, Clarence? The royal retainer nodded solemnly at the wide-eyed group. Course you can. Why? Spouted Jimmy. You just ought to see me ride once. You just ought to see me. Why can't I look? I'm not a wind. Can't I, Clarence? And I can ride far too. Oh, awful far. Can't I, Clarence? Why? I wouldn't have that one far. It ain't any good. You ought to see mine once. The overwhelmed Horace attempted to reconstruct his battered glories. I can ride right over that curbstone at some crossings, he announced brightly. Jimmy's derision was a splendid sight. Right over the curbstone? Why, that wouldn't be nothing for me to do. Why, I've rolled mine down the Bridge Street Hill. Yes, sir. Ain't that, Clarence? Why, ain't nothing to ride over a curbstone. Not for me. Is it, Clarence? Down Bridge Street Hill? You never, said Horace hopelessly. Why, didn't I, Clarence? Didn't I now? The faithful retainer again nodded solemnly at the assemblage. At last Horace, having fallen as low as possible, began to display a spirit for climbing up again. Oh, you can't do wonders, he said, laughing. You can do wonders. I suppose you could ride down that bank there, he asked with art. He had indicated a grassy terrace some 6 feet in height, which bounded one side of the walk. At the bottom was a small ravine, in which the reckless had flung ashes and tins. I suppose you could ride down that bank. All eyes now turned upon Jimmy to detect a sign of his weakening, but he instantly and sublimely arose to the occasion. That bank? He asked scornfully. Why, I've ridden down that bank like that a many a time. Ain't I, Clarence? This was too much for the company. A sound like the wind in the leaves arose. It was the song of incredulity, the ridicule. Ooh! And on the outskirts, a little girl suddenly shrieked out, Storyteller! Horace had certainly won a skirmish. He was gleeful. Oh, you can do wonders, he gurgled. You can do wonders. The neighborhood's superficial hostility to foreigners arose like magic under the influence of his sudden success, and Horace had the delight of seeing Jimmy persecuted in that manner known only to children and insects. Jimmy called angrily to the boy on the velocipede, "If you lend me yours, I'll show you whether I can or not." Horace turned his superior nose in the air. "Oh no, I don't ever lend it." Then he thought of a blow which would make Jimmy's humiliation complete. "Besides," he said airily, "'tain't really anything hard to do. I could do it easy if I wanted to." But his supposed adherents, instead of receiving his boost with cheers, looked upon him in a sudden blank silence. Jimmy and his retainer pounced like cats upon their advantage. "Oh," they yelled, "you could do it, eh? Well, let's see you do it then. Let's see you do it. Let's see you do it now." In a moment, the crew of little spectators were gibbling at Horace at the blow that would make Jimmy's humiliation complete. Instead, it had boomeranged Horace into the mud. He kept up a sullen muttering, "'Tain't really anything I could if I wanted to." "Dare you to?" screeched Jimmy and his partisan. "Dare you to, dare you to, dare you to." There were two things to be done: the make gallant effort or the retreat. Somewhat to their amazement, the children at last found Horace moving through their clamour to the edge of the bank, sitting on the velocipede. He looked at the ravine, and then, with gloomy pride at the other children, a hush came upon them, for it was seen that he was intending to make some kind of an ante-mortem statement. He began, then he vanished from the edge of the walk. The start had been unintentional, an accident. The stupefied Jimmy saw the calamity through a haze. His first clear vision was when Horace, with a face as red as a red flag, arose, bawling from his tangled velocipede. He and his retainer exchanged a glance of horror and fled the neighborhood. They did not look back until they had reached the top of the hill near the lake. They could see Horace walking slowly under the maples toward his home, pushing his shattered velocipede before him. His chin was thrown high and the breeze bore them the sound of his howls. 1899 November, Harper Magazine, Volume 99, pp. 855-860.